Hey, it's Stephen Rothberg. I am the founder and chief visionary officer of College Recruiter, a job search site where we believe that every student and recent graduate deserves a great career. And I am really excited for today's conversation with Jeff Lackey. He is the founder and managing partner of JKL Advisors. Jeff, welcome to the High Volume Hiring Podcast.
Well, thank you, Stephen. Great to be on the show.
So for the listeners who don't know you or JKL Advisors, give us the Twitter bio. Who's Jeff?
Sure.
And I can see from the acronym JKL is definitely short for you.
Yes, JKL. So my initials, which is really easy for me to remember that way, right? So, but JKL Advisors also has another name called Growing Your Business with People, which is also a parallel podcast. But also, it's really the tagline of JKL Advisors. We are an organization. I am an organization that has a small group of fractional individuals who work together to help solve business problems, mostly organizations who are looking to grow their business through the biggest and most important investment that they have, which is people. And you'll notice that I use the word investment. I don't use the word asset, although technically in financial terms, an investment is technically in accounting an asset. But I consider it an investment because many assets depreciate, but investments are intended to grow. And so, again, growing your business with people, there's a lot of depth and meaning there. So myself, I've had the pleasure and really the privilege of leading organizations in 8 different industries across 70 different countries to be able to hire over 1 million people across the globe. So I've just had a wonderful time doing that, and I'm had the opportunity to work in anywhere from heavy equipment and power systems to high tech and communications, pharmacy, energy, healthcare. So there are very few industries I haven't touched or had the opportunity to work in. So just excited to be here on the show and be able to share whatever gleanings I've had from my experience.
Awesome. Thank you. That is so great. And I love the fact how you emphasize the million people. One of the things that at College Recruiter and other folks that we talk to, vendors, customers, partners, whatever, that those of us who kind of can force ourselves or get ourselves to remember, like daily, maybe multiple times a day, that what we're doing is helping people find new jobs, new careers. And if you can do that for 10 people, that's fantastic. 100,000 people, better. 1 million people. I mean, the way that we touch and have an impact on people's lives, we need to remember that on those difficult days.
I remember a quick quote from a friend of mine and a colleague. Actually, my very first employee who worked for me was Andy Thompson. And Andy was a recruiter, a very experienced recruiter working for a very junior manager at that point in time. So, so a really good guy. So very patient, obviously. One of the things he taught me was he very, very early on and said, in recruiting, our job is to help people find jobs they love, because if you find a job you love, you'll never work another day in your life. And I found those words to be just as true nearly 30 years on as I did the day that he said them nearly 30 years ago. So Andy, if you're out there, I give you a good shout out. He's retired. He's enjoying life right now, but want to say thank you for that.
I think I've been fortunate to have a few people that I've reported to, nothing reverse like that, where I had a lot more experience than my managers, but boy, a good manager, somebody who guides you and shares their wisdom with you is just unbelievable. I look back 30 years when I was like in my early 20s at lessons that my managers shared with me, and like they were probably about how old I am now. And the wisdom that they were able to impart was amazing. So question for you. Before we got on, we were talking a little bit about strategic talent acquisition, and I think that's what a lot of I think that you probably talk about with your clients. Before we sort of get into the benefits of that, maybe you can help the listeners know with your definition of what strategic talent acquisition is.
Well, I guess the first thing that you really have to understand with strategic talent acquisition is you really have to get what is the business trying to achieve and are its purposes. So I spend a lot of time with my leaders, really understand how do you make money, what are your measures of success, what are the biggest obstacles that you need to overcome. Because unfortunately, sometimes what they did was they tried to package up their problems into TA terms so that they could say, well, I just need to hire 100 people, or I just need to do this, or I just need to do that. And what I found was that actually when you unpack the just needs to, because anytime I hear the word just, it sends like the little hairs in the back of my neck up. And I'm like, okay, there's some stuff to talk about here, right? And say, okay, so let's talk about this. Like, what does that mean? Why, and then you've heard the term 5 whys. Ask why 5 times, go deep, get to the root cause, talk to your leaders, and really dig in and help me understand that. Why is that? And what you find is that oftentimes the thing that they want is not the thing they're asking for. That's the thing that they are asking for is the thing they think that they can have. And what they actually want is something that you may be able to provide them, but they've never had anybody who could provide that. And so you need to dig in as a strategic talent acquisition leader. Your job is to actually become very curious. There's a term, and forgive me if I use this, but it's actually a Hebrew term, and it's something I've been studying recently. It's called lev shomeh. And lev shomeh was used in biblical terms back in Solomon's time. And technically, Solomon, who was considered to be the most wise person on earth, according to the Bible, that's the thing he asked for. And what that term means is a listening heart. So if you think about what he asked for, he didn't ask for wisdom or discernment. He actually asked for a listening heart. And if leaders can spend a little bit more time adopting a listening heart and listen to other leaders who are their clients and start to listen for understanding and figure out what those intersection points are, then what they can do is maybe provide that leader with the thing that they actually need and want, not just the thing that they think that they could actually have because they've had it before. I want 100 recs. Well, tell me about this. Why do you have 100 recs open? Oh, well, we have a real problem with attrition. Okay, let's talk about attrition. What do we know about this? What do we understand? What don't we know? What are the knowns and unknowns about your attrition? Well, here are the things. Okay. Well, one of the knowns is that we seem to be hiring people that are clearly not a good match for your organization at the get-go because they're leaving in less than 6 months or a year. So why do you think that is? Again, the 5 why. Why do you think that is? Well, the market's just tough. Okay, well, the market's just tough for everybody.
Yeah.
Why is it particularly tough for you? And as you get into the discussion, the leader, what happens so many times with TA leaders is they go into these conversations and they go into this thing called clear disorder mode. And executives, all of us have that, right? Like, get to the nut, go after it, and solve that problem because I don't got time to do all this other stuff, which is completely great, except for the fact that you're going to actually hurt yourself in the long run instead of help yourself. It's a pay me now or pay me later scenario. And I tell the same thing to my recruiters. So my job with clients and my leader's job with clients is to understand them and what they need. Do you know what the most important conversation a recruiter has? Is that intake call with their customer.
Yeah,
says,
sure. The hiring manager, right?
The hiring manager.
Yeah.
And I say 90% of recs succeed or fail based on the quality of your intake call. And that goes all the way up the chain to the VP, SVP of talent. all the way down to the recruiter coordinators. And because if they all reflect that listening heart, where they're listening and understanding, comprehending, integrating, what they're more likely to do is create a more holistic and more sustainable solution that will be helpful. And then it creates other things. So one of the examples that we had was we were in the middle of the pandemic, and our executives said, we have lots of people in other adjoining organizations, companies that are laying off.
This is when you were at CVS, correct?
This is what at CVS. Yeah. This is when I was VP of TA at CVS.
Yeah.
And they said, we're laying off people. We're seeing people getting laid off and furloughed by the millions, right?
Hotels, theme parks, restaurants,
airlines, everybody that is a consumer based.
Right.
But we had to continue to maintain our stores because, one, there were a lot of people who were affected by COVID who weren't able to go in because of health risks or issues. Yeah. There were also people who were dropping out of the workforce because of health related issues. But we had to keep our stores open because we had to keep our pharmacies open because people needed medications. They needed basic necessities of life. And I said, okay, so we have a real strange opportunity here. I said, and one of the things that I was talking about, so that was the problem statement and the opportunity. So Kerry Noone and I, so big shout out to Kerry Noone, a common friend of
Kerry,
of Stephen and I. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kerry's awesome. She's over at EY right now. So big shout out to EY and Kerry. Yeah. But and good job, EY, for getting her. You should be proud of her. So she and I come up with this idea. We hatched this idea. We said, what if we reached out in collaborative partnership to all of these different companies, not to try and take their people.
Yes.
But to ask them to say, hey, you need a place for them to go, what I'm going to call a shelter in the storm, right? Mm. And we're going to be willing to be that shelter. And you can continue to be what I'll call the host or the parent. Like, you are the originating organization where they came from. And we expect that they're not going to come to CVS forever, right? So we're going to create a welcome page where it might have an intro video from your executive, your CEO, your CHRO, business leader, welcome them and say, I'm really sorry. This is an extremely tough time. We aren't happy that we had to go through this furlough or reduction, but we have a partner in CVS who's willing to open their doors and their hearts to you to be able to bring you in, to create an opportunity for you. We want to welcome you to search out jobs on this page that might be a really good fit for you, right? So with that, we created these individual, one by one. We had over 50 of them, right? And we actually created the write-up. I was super proud of Kerry and her team. The marketing team was brilliant on this, right? They actually wrote the spec in the verbiage that aligned with how people referred to their folks. So cast members would be Disney, right? Team members would be another. Colleagues would be another. They actually made sure that the template, the referring document, even though it was semi-standard, you had to have some standardization. It was customized enough so it sounded like it was actually coming from the host company. And we had thousands and thousands of people that we hired through this. But I'd made a commitment to each and every one. One is that I'd give them weekly reports on how many people that we hired from their organization and were brought into CVS. I didn't give them all the names because that would have been, PII, and I wasn't going to transfer. But I gave them data on how many people were coming in, interviewed, hired, and all that every week. And every single one got their own report. The second thing I did, which my reporting team, big shout out to the team, Ali and Kristen Erban and team, really great job. But the second thing that I did, I made a commitment. I put my name on this. I said, we will send out notifications to those people if you, the host organization, want us to and request it. And we'll let them know, the folks within CVS, that you're rehiring. Now, most of them didn't end up taking us up on it. I'll be quite honest. It didn't, but that commitment was one that actually, in one or two cases, we did get some requests. But mostly, what I would say is, it put an element of trust on the line that says, I'm willing to put my name behind what I'm doing here, and show myself up as a collaborative partner with you, collaborating with you. And those people, those individuals that I work with, I still have great relationships with. Some of which I had relationships before, but a lot of them I didn't. And now I feel like there's a connection there that we didn't have. Kind of you make your best friends in the foxhole, so to speak. So yeah, so that was an example of the strategic part, was where we listened to our clients and said, hey, we need, our internal clients,
Yeah.
we need something. We also listened to the market and said, these people aren't really wanting to give up their people, they're having to. So let's create a solution that actually allows them to temporarily give up their folks, but also satisfy our clients' need in a way that, and then people found it interesting. It made some news in Wall Street Journal and a few other places, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I remember this when, as a CVS customer, and hearing it's like, oh, we're going to hire 50,000 people over the next few. It's like, who, how? And then Jerry Crispin from Career Crossroads started to talk about this, and it was like, this is people coming together in such an incredibly challenging time for everybody.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, the cliche, making lemonade out of lemons, but at a much grander scale. Just much really tremendous for everybody involved. For the employers who are listening to this, it's like, well, how does this impact me? I think one of the takeaways for me is that what you did and the other people involved on a really massive scale, in a really horrifying time in history, translates perfectly into a more micro level. So if you need to hire 50 people or 500 people, and there's a manufacturing facility down the street that is going through some temporary layoffs, the warehouse, it's the day after Christmas, and they're letting a whole bunch of people go for the next 4 months. Partner and maybe try to find a temporary home. So many employees, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, in these high volume roles are hourly.
Right.
And what they really want out of their job is a paycheck so they can buy food, have shelter, buy medicine. And rather than sending those people to the unemployment rolls, where hopefully they're going to get a job with somebody else weeks, maybe months later, you can help them today. Whether you're the one who is saying, hey, I found a temporary home for you, a shelter, or whether you're the person providing that shelter. And I love the analogy of the shelter too. If you're out biking and there's a thunderstorm, right, and you seek shelter, it's a great place to be for maybe half an hour, 2 hours, whatever, but it's not your home.
You don't want to live there.
That's not, you don't want to live there, but it's definitely better than being out in the wild. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the High Volume Hiring podcast. For people who want to reach out to you to learn more about working with you, the fractional TA leaders that you work with, how would you like them to do that?
There's a couple ways. Go to my LinkedIn page or go to my Growing Your Business with People company page on LinkedIn. You can also go to www.growingyourbusinesswithpeople.com or www.gybwp.com. So we got a few different ways, but the most important thing that I just say is that start making connections. When you go visit that factory down the street, go in there, with a little bit of empathy about what they're going through, and don't just go in there with a heavy hand. I went in there knowing that I met with those people at a place, knowing that I've been on the other side of laying folks off. And I knew the tears that were shed by those leaders and the hearts that were breaking as they were having to give news. And I know what it's like. right? I felt that pain, and I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. And I could understand and appreciate that pain that they were going through. And what I wasn't trying to do was, I certainly was not trying to take advantage of that pain. I was trying to be a help and a support, and somebody who actually cared, but also somebody who could at the same time create a mutually beneficial relationship between the two of us. So you really have to go in remembering that if somebody is going through that, it isn't a time to swoop in and try and be a hero. And it's certainly not a time to, basically say, how many people can I have? Right. It's a time to have start in by asking him, really, I would ask, how are you doing? How are you holding up right now? And you might hear a little bit more about what they're feeling right then, because quite honestly, probably nobody else is asking them that question. So if you're dealing with folks who are on the other side of the hiring, if you're on the upside and they're on the downside, don't forget the pain that they're going through as you go through this, because that's going to be a big component. But thank you very much, Stephen, for the opportunity to be on the show. And thank you, for being a good partner.
Awesome. Cheers, Jeff.
Cheers. Bye-bye.